Welcome back to What, Why God? And in this season, in season 4, we are going to be talking about why people don't go to church. In this day and age, in the American church and in the church in the West, a lot of people have decided not to go anymore. And the reasons are varied, and the consequences, though, on our culture has been quite stark. I think a lot of people have noticed it. And today I have with me Rocky Hudson. He's been one of our elders here at First Colony for a long time, and he has a breadth of knowledge about the importance of church and has led a lot of people to Christ, which is great. But a lot of people say, well, he has no degree in being a minister, a ministerial degree. He didn't go to school for this. So what gives him the authority to be talking to people, to God, about God in the church? And we all need lay people. So what would you say to that, Rocky? What would be your response? I'm sure you've heard that before in many different variations on a theme. So what would you say to that?
Well, first I would say that Bible knowledge is very important. Having a degree, that's very beneficial, but also the practical knowledge of life application, understanding the scripture and being able to apply it to daily life circumstances, I think is very beneficial as well. And so being able to understand the Bible and put it in daily life situations has also been a big help for me. I really love talking to seekers. And over the years, I've believe at our core, we all want a deep relationship with God and with others. And I think at our very nature, it is we're seekers and we're looking for that. And some people have replaced that with individualism. They've also been able to focus on that more than they maybe should. And we've somewhere along the way lost our focus on the core commitments of church and church community. And so I think it's important that we have people that are maybe business background, personal experience that can share with people more about the practical applications in life.
Yeah, it's about trying to find the meaning of life, I think, too. And people, unfortunately, are not going to church to do that anymore. They're going other places. And so to have businessmen and people like you that are actually in the church that know this is a life experience for me. It's not just a book knowledge and a biblical from that perspective, but you certainly do a lot of biblical stuff. So, what would you say, because you've been an elder for so long, and he's just retired from that role, but we can't stop. He's still doing the shepherding, which I love, helping a lot of people. So what would you say was the most important part of your role as a lay leader here in this church in particular, or in general, any lay leader?
Well, I have been an elder for 26 years, and so sometimes it's good to talk with someone that has a lot of miles on their odometer.
That's true.
But as such, basically, I like to work with people that have an open heart, that are receptive to maybe me sharing with them some of those life experiences. And so I really like helping people. I like making a difference. And I think it's important to really care about people. And that shows by how much, people know whether you care or not.
Yeah, they do.
And it really comes across.
Yeah, and I would say Rocky's probably one of the more humble people that I know. And he would never speak about himself in this way. So I'm forcing him to, in a way. But I think if you notice somebody that is very open and helping and humble, you want to know, well, what is it about that person? And I think in that regard, you and Ginger, your wife, are very engaging and have been really great, stellar, solid role models for a lot of people here on how to be the kind of Christian. And I do think you're led with the Spirit.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I think part of that's being a good listener. I have to work at it. My wife reminds me often that that's not my natural tendency. So I do try to work at it. But, people have a story to tell and they want someone to hear it. They want someone to understand them. And most of the time they want somebody to pray with them. And so being a good mentor, walking along beside people, helping them through the daily things of life, especially the difficult circumstances, I think that's really what is part of being a lay leader, is that maybe your swell is from the ground up. It's more like the grassroots. You're working with people and helping build them up and helping them encourage them to be walk that daily walk with Jesus.
Yeah, that's really good stuff. It's great. So what do you think made you feel called to lead in this way? I know you were asked to become an elder, but obviously if somebody asks, doesn't mean they have to say yes. So what made you say yes to that?
Well, I've always wanted to make a difference in people's lives. And I think God has called me to that role. But also, I've also wanted to make a difference by the way that we work with people. And so accepting that responsibility is a way to have an avenue to talk with people. And I think people are looking for mentors, someone that can really walk with them, just to walk them down those roads of difficult circumstances, of celebrations, whatever it might be. And so I've always felt comfortable working with people. That's kind of my thing that I like to do. And so this is natural to talk to them about real life and how the business world connects with the church world.
Yeah, and I will also say, you can come to Rocky just about for anything, and you are a good listener. So thank you, Ginger. You're a great listener, and you never feel like you're being judged. So somebody may come to Rocky with something difficult, and you're very humble and kind, and you want to work with somebody through a situation, which I've always appreciated. You don't just rush to judgment and say, well, this is what we need to do. You have people think about it. Well, let's think about that. How can I help? And or just let them talk. And like you said, sometimes I think people just want to talk, which is great. And we all can learn to do that. You don't have to be a minister to minister to people.
Well, I think that's important from the being a lay leader, is that people can relate to you in some ways. Maybe they think that a minister is different, held to a different standard. But because we're out in the real world, we deal with all those normal circumstances everybody else deals with. I think they feel like they can share more. And maybe your experience, your wisdom is something you can impart, and they're receptive to that.
Yeah, experience has a lot to do with it, and you just don't know what everybody else has gone through. So, yeah, absolutely. So, I asked Rocky if he had a specific example of someone that you've helped that you really felt like, okay, sometimes God gives us little nuggets to remind us, to give us a little boost that, yeah, you're doing okay because this is what I'm doing. So, tell us that story about how you felt like God really used you in somebody's life.
Well, I'm reminded of a story about Ginger and I were leading a Bible study, and so I think it's a good example to share with you. This lady was not of a Christian background. She was a non-Christian faith, but she was seeking God. And she happened to be coming by here, our building, and saw our cross on the steeple. And as such, she was drawn to it. She felt God was calling her here. And she came in during the week. She came in the church office and wanted to speak to someone. And eventually, I was the one that got to study with her. Ginger and I both were able to do a study. We started with the basics. We started at the beginning. And over several months, we studied together about God and about Jesus and about what that means to be a Christian. Eventually, she decided she wanted to be baptized. And for us, it was a great celebration. We worked through a lot of personal circumstances, a lot of personal challenges along the way, as most people have. And in this case, she invited a friend that was from her home country. She was not a native from here. And as such, the friend flew in from another state and to witness her baptism. And she witnessed the baptism. We were all celebrating. And when talking with her, I said, well, you're going to be in town the next few days before your flight leaves. Maybe I can help you with some directions on things to do around town to enjoy your one and only experience of this area. And she said, well, really, I'd rather just study the Bible with you. And so that was kind of shocking to me, but I was glad to hear it and ran with it. So we studied over the next several days, and she too became a Christian and became baptized and was, of course, very much receptive to the gospel. And it's amazing how many people are really seeking if you just listen to them and talk to them. In this case, Ginger and I also visited her in her home state. We went to see her and encourage her, and was really encouraged about she'd gotten plugged in another church and was very active there. Yeah. But, both of these ladies had a very unique story, because for them to become a Christian, their faith meant more because it was a commitment. They couldn't return back to their homeland. They were committing to being here and being a Christian for life because there was no going back. And I think even for a lot of us, we don't have that experience. Yeah. But for them, it was real. It was really life-changing. Yeah. And so it's exciting to be a part of that, but God was working through that. It was the Holy Spirit. It was His words that was speaking. I just happened to be the one at the moment, was in the right place at the right time.
That's awesome. I love how God can use us in such wonderful ways. And, sometimes we feel like, oh, I don't really do that much. But then every now and then He gives you a little nugget of how God has worked in your life. And so that's a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope this meant something to you today. You can be a lay leader. Listen to Rocky's story. It is okay to come to church. In fact, we are all people that are sinners. We all make mistakes. We all have things that we need to work on. And there are people here who are willing to pray with you, who are willing to work with you in those and help you find a way through it, because we know that God is our solid foundation. And He will, if you're really seeking and you want to find community, church is the best place to start. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.